Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Here we go. Shouty Drill Sergeant. First of all, I got mad respect for the uniform and all servicemen, past and present, except for one. Here's my story. When I was 19, I did military service, as was custom for young men in my country. See, I'm not American. Anyhow, I did enjoy my time in the Defense Force quite a lot. Made some new friends, learned a lot of new stuff, and also bought me 1 year of thinking of what to do with my life. I had some plans to continue in uniform one way or another, but that's not really interesting in this story. What is interesting is some basic facts to keep in mind during my story, however. First of all, I did my military service 15-minute drive from home, which meant I knew all the area around the base pretty well since I'd grown up there. I'm also that kind of person that'll ask questions to learn more and who will always try to put in my best effort in everything I do, and also to learn the rules. As a new recruit, there's a ton of things to learn. How to dress, how many buttons to button, and so on. Shaving of the hair is encouraged but not mandatory. Same goes for facial hair. Personally, I enjoy having a bit of hair on top but shaved on the sides. And here my antagonist enters the story. One of the 3 drill sergeants that was set to teach us the basics of soldiering. I was quick to learn the ropes, maybe not the most fit of the recruits, but certainly not the sloppiest either. Every morning we would line up for inspection, and the drill sergeants would inspect each and every one of us recruits, often finding small defects to complain about, sending us away to correct. And each time it happened, I would always smile and say, "Yes, sir," and go and correct it, knowing there was nothing to correct. It was just a way to drill us. Now, one of the sergeants, let's call him Sergeant B, Sergeant B always found something to complain about on everyone, and I think it annoyed him that I always smiled. Sergeant B was shorter than average and somewhat rounded. Not fat, just a bit chunkier than average as well. Instead of talking loud like the others, he preferred screaming, especially in the face of people. I guess he'd seen too many war movies with bad drill instructors in them. That did not go down well with us conscripts, really. We quickly lost respect for him as a person, but we did respect him for being our superior officer, or his uniform, if that makes sense. Anyhow, he didn't seem to like me at all and would always mess with me. And one day, I got my revenge. It was in the fall. We were outside the base training for a bigger exercise coming up. They had divided us into groups of 8, and our mission was to relocate from one location to another. We had all our personal equipment like backpack, weapon, and so on, plus the group tent, stove, and heavy machine gun. So we were quite heavy equipment-wise, and I was assigned group leader this event. Good thing we were in an area I knew so well, navigating was easy since I knew all the paths in the forest and so on, and Sergeant B was tagging along, not knowing I knew the area, but my team knew. The path we took ended up at a small swamp and would split so you could walk around the swamp on either side. I decided we should take a 5-minute rest since we were ahead of schedule anyway. Sergeant B did not like that, even though I think honestly he was the one who needed it the most since he was the one huffing and puffing, despite he didn't carry anything except his uniform and a water bottle. I asked my team which side around the swamp they wanted to go and told them the pros and cons of each way. I don't remember which way we chose, but I remember I picked up the machine gun, 12.4 kilograms, so quite heavy. Now, Sergeant B intervened and demanded I check the map, but I said we already decided to go around the swamp. For some reason, Sergeant B wanted us to cross the swamp. It looked dry enough to cross, but I declined and said we'd go around. This is where he pulled rank and demanded we cross. I asked him if he would take command of the group and lead us across, to which he replied, "I'll take command. Group, follow me." So I stood down and let him pass me. I think he managed to take about 1.5 steps into the swamp before he had sunken down to his waist in mud. We decided not to follow him, and instead we all just looked at him. After a while, one of the others asked him, "Any new orders, sir?" We pulled him out of the swamp. He was furious, but didn't say a word. He walked back the way we came in his wet, muddy uniform. The rest of us continued around the swamp. We didn't see him back in camp that day. After that incident, he didn't bother me anymore for the rest of my conscription time. The downside of knowing a place well and not needing to use a map is that the map reading skills don't get improved. Should one ever get deployed and need to read an armed forces topographical map, the skills to read such a map may not exist when really needed. To To get to the other area wasn't really the point of the exercise. Still, Sergeant Muddy learned that maps are not always fully accurate, up to date, and include seasonal conditions. And our second story. I understand your confusion, but I still don't work here. I work at a fuel station owned by a company that also has a supermarket chain. It's important to note that despite being owned by the same company, we have different specials, products, and uniforms, aside from the shared logo. Supermarkets wear gray and white shirts, and fuel wear all black polos. We just share a logo. So I just finished my shift at the fuel station and needed to grab some stuff for dinner. I had a hoodie zipped up over my black shirt and was walking quickly just to grab what I needed and get out. So I was looking at sauces, deciding if I wanted basil or oregano, when some middle-aged woman storms up the aisle and says, "Excuse me." Now, I get pretty bad social anxiety, so I assumed she wanted passed, and I just shuffled over so her trolley could get past. Then she walks over and roughly pokes me in the arm and says, "I'm talking to you, don't ignore me." I just stared at her, and she went, "I'm looking for this product, but you don't have any on the shelves. Go check in the back." Because I understood what was going on, I calmed way down and laughed like, "Oh, sorry, I don't actually work here." This was me basically laughing off how rude she'd been and giving her a free pass to walk away. But some people are so dense. Her. "Don't lie to me. I know you work here. I can see your shirt. Take me to this product now." "I don't care. Ignore you're on break. Get me it." Me. "Sorry, I don't actually work here. I work at fuel station. I don't know anything about this store or what they stock, and I can't go in the back. Sorry." Then I fast walked out of there just as fast as I could fast walk, and she followed me. Now I'm 5'9" and pretty athletic, so I power walk like a MF. I went to the different aisles, and she was just storming along behind me, not even saying anything, just pushing her trolley and huffing. I got to the checkout, and she came in after me and said to the woman at the till, "Where's the manager? I want to speak to the manager." As the woman's checking my shopping, she says, "Hi, I'm the manager. How can I help?" Her. "This employee was so rude to me. I want her reprimanded right now." Manager, looking at me confused. I'm sorry, ma'am. She doesn't work here." Her. "That's what she said, but I can see her uniform. Stop lying and fire her right now." Manager. "I'm sorry, but she really doesn't work here. There are different company stores, and she's not part of the groceries one. She doesn't work here." The woman just went right red, I hope out of embarrassment, most likely out of anger, said, "This is complete bullcrap," and stormed away. The manager then had the audacity to say, "Maybe you shouldn't wear your uniform into the store?" Wow. 2 idiots for the price of 1. You may not work there, but they run great specials. Seriously, though, you had a flipping hoodie on. Any reasonable person who assumed you worked there would have also assumed you were on break and left you alone. And our next story. I didn't clarify my name. I am a woman, but I have a name that can be easily confused for a man's. I also run a business. About a week ago, I bumped into a lady running down the hallway who seemed incredibly nervous, causing me to spill my drink all over my shirt. She explained she was here for a job interview and was incredibly frazzled because she had heard the boss was a huge B-word and horrible to work for. I instantly knew she was talking about me, but the iced coffee soaking my clothes was my main focus, so I told her to follow me into my office and we would get to the interview when I cleaned myself up. She must have taken me saying, "Get to the interview," as I would show her to the boss's office, not that I would sit down and start the interview in a moment. The entire time I was in the bathroom silently trying to dry myself off, she was talking about how she didn't even know if she wanted to take this job because of how horrible the boss was. I tried not to engage because I really didn't want to stand there and listen to her talk about what an evil person I was, but I didn't know how to break it to her that I'm Devin, not Devon. When I finally got at least somewhat cleaned off, pulled a sweater over my stained shirt and walked out, she was still going. I told her we would start the interview, and she looked confused, but quickly realized her mistake. I apologized, then told her I didn't think she'd be a good fit for the position. I didn't care about what she said about me. I had thick skin and had heard far worse than that. She just seemed too nervous and frantic for a job you needed to be calm and collected in. She started yelling at me, telling me this was my fault and I should have stopped her. My assistant has been giving me grief about it all week, and I'm starting to think he's right. I see where he's coming from. I could have easily corrected her about my gender and status, but at the same time, I needed to monitor who I worked with, and someone this willing to gossip about a person they didn't even know well enough to know the gender of didn't seem like a good fit. And our last story. No, I'm not a member of the HOA. So I finally bought my first house a few months ago. It was a nice suburb of a major city, but I managed to get a decent deposit and put an offer in below the asking price, as the owner had been trying to sell for years, so I got really lucky. I also learned the neighborhood was part of the HOA. I've known many horror stories of HOAs, so when I was asked to join, I said F no, and it wasn't a decision that was met well. I loved in, and from the start, neighbors made comments about why I didn't join the HOA. I told them, quite frankly, my opinion on them, and that I basically thought they were pointless, and all they did was reinforce a superiority complex. Well, that pissed off my neighbors, who then told the other people on the street. Turns out, I'm the only one not a part of the HOA, so I became public enemy one. I tried to just live my life and basically make the house into the one I wanted. The yard needed a bit of work and didn't have a fence, so I decided to put one in just so my yard was sealed off from everyone. I got people to build it for me, no problem, with the correct heights, and it was constructed. Well, I got a letter from the HOA saying putting a fence in is a violation, and they even had the nerve to fine me. I went to the person who sent it and told them I'm not in the HOA, the fence is the direct dimensions for what you're allowed, and that I can do what I want on my property. Things worsened, and I got angry neighbors coming to my house demanding I do something about the fence. I told them to get lost, and when one of them tried to start taking it apart, I got really angry. I called the cops and told them I had people trespassing on my property. They showed up and arrested a few, and when I was questioned, I showed the cops the letter. I told them the HOA has been harassing me, and I'm not a part of it. Well, the people arrested were released without charge, as I agreed not to press any charges. They were given a fair warning by the cops, and ever since, the HOA has been on my butt and really pressuring me to join. I told them if they keep it up, I'll call the cops on them and press charges of harassment against them. They don't take kindly to this and are calling me an a-hole for starting a war against them. All I wanted was a peaceful life, not to be hated by the whole street. Well done, OP. Do not join. Document all the harassment, start a log for the phone calls and visits, keep every piece of mail, and put up cameras. The minute anything happens to your property, you take those a-holes to court and don't stop until either they leave you alone or you own them. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.